You are in for an interesting ride.
Hi folks, and welcome to the ET Newsroom, and I'm Joanna Summerscales. Today I want to share with you, it's late January 2024, and I want to share with you a piece I wrote in August of 2023, and that was in response to the David Grusch exposition, I guess, when he was talking to the US Senate and those folks over there in late July 2023. Now, people may not have much of a background of UFO cases, that kind of thing. So what I thought would be helpful is if I put together some cases, but if you're not a researcher, you might not know of them. So I thought if I'd condense them into one piece, I would read them out so you can go and get your coffee, your popcorn, beer, wine, tea, and have a listen and see what you think. So this is in response to the David Grusch piece and a commentary on what's been going on from some of the well-known cases in the UFO world. So buckle up, folks. You're in for a bit of an interesting ride. Once again.
Comment on the recent testimonials to the US government on things extraterrestrial. It was written the 15th of August 2023. On the 13th of June 2013, Channel 4, a major UK television company, aired a less than representative piece as a documentary, Confessions of an Alien Abductee, about the project I initiated in January 2011, the AMASH Project, Anomalous Mind Management Abductee-Contactee Helpline. The project's focus included interviewing, on camera, by way of soft disclosure, those with experiences of things extraterrestrial and allied subjects, possibly other dimensional et al. The program drew a mixed bag of responses and a plethora of personal attacks. That event and newspaper articles of the time prompted an intriguing phone call, followed by a letter from 85-year-old Jo Walters, an Englishwoman who spoke of a secret she'd held for 15 years that now weighed heavily on her, and incredibly, it related to Roswell. Sensing death was not far off and feeling the responsibility of it, she didn't want to take the secret to the grave and would share it if certain criteria were met. She requested that I try and locate the person who'd imparted this confidentiality with a view to obtaining permission. A subsequent lack of progress in this undertaking related to the person reportedly being in an aged care facility with age-related mental issues. I duly reported my findings. With her concerns allayed, Jo agreed to share her testimony on camera. This would be the first time the world had heard this story, though I couldn't imagine what secret an elderly English lady could possibly have that involved Roswell. I was to find out. Jo's story began in 1998 when she and a friend had gone to the States to look at potential retirement properties. The owner and builder of the properties they viewed invited the ladies to stay overnight at his home and have dinner with him, which they were delighted to do. At dinner, Jo fell into conversation about UFOs, having had her own sighting, and was fascinated by things extraterrestrial, though she was not a researcher, so had no idea that her host, Nathan Twining Jr.'s father, was General Nathan F. Twining, third chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, whose insider knowledge of military secrets of aliens and UFOs was deep and classified. Before Nathan Jr. shared his secret, he elicited Jo's promise to secrecy, which she readily agreed to, excited to speak with someone of like mind on a topic she found so enthralling. Nathan Jr. recounted how he had, on several occasions throughout the years, asked his father the question of aliens and Roswell, only to have his inquiries swatted away as nonsense. However, 6 weeks before the death of his father on March 29, 1982, the general had called his son to his bedside and revealed a secret he'd kept all these years. General Nathan F. Twining revealed to his son that Roswell was indeed a real UFO event, and not only that, but of the 3 beings recovered at the crash site, 1 had survived for 15 years, during which time the general had come to know him and even considered him as a friend. This deathbed confession was a bombshell, confirming what Nathan Jr. had suspected all along. With her promise in mind, Jo had kept this revelation to herself, but felt it too important to take to the grave with her. This astonishing testimony goes a long way to demonstrating the reality of deep-rooted, endemic, governmental military secrecy that still prevails today regarding all levels of knowledge re UFOs, UAPs, other life forms, and suppressed technologies that could change human society for the better. On July 26, 2023, the House Oversight and Accountability Committee convened a hearing on unidentified aerial phenomena, implications on national security, public safety, and government transparency, headed by Republican Representatives Tim Burchett, Tennessee, and Anna Paulina Luna, Florida. The purpose: to hear testimonies of former F-18 fighter pilot Lieutenant Ryan Graves, Commander David Fravor, US Navy pilot retired, who both reported extraordinary sightings, with Graves citing concerns for pilot safety relating to a near-collision incident, as well as his own first-hand UFO observations, which inspired the creation of a support and reporting body called Americans for Safe Aerospace, with 5,000 members. Retired Navy Commander Fravor of the FA-18F Squadron on the USS Nimitz, veteran of the now famous November 14, 2004 Tic Tac UFO event, the film of which was seen first by the public in 2017, which caused quite the furore as the first officially released US footage. However, it was former USAF officer and intelligence official David Grusch who did not have any first-hand experience. Rather, it was his contacts whose experiences he was giving voice to. So that lit the taper of public interest, with comments relating to non-human biologics being found along with the government possession of crashed craft. He frequently cited his inability to answer questions in public, though he was willing to reveal such within a SCIF, a sensitive compartmented information facility, to those with relevant clearances. I appreciate this formal hearing setting creates a degree of credibility and significance to the subject, which has been a long time coming, but frankly, with all due respect, this is nothing new. Little note or importance is given to the exceptional and groundbreaking May 9, 2001 Disclosure Project Press Club event held in Washington, D.C., organized by Dr. Stephen Greer, founder of CSETI, Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. This event had some 20 people testifying under oath, hailing from the FAA to military and science-related fields, including information given on crash retrieval and alien bodies seen firsthand, Clifford Stone's statement, who further stated there are in the region of 57 different races known to be interacting or visiting Earth. Dr. Greer has, since the 1990s, been collating on the record testimonials by services personnel, as well as those from intelligence sectors and others. High-ranking government and intelligence personnel who were out of the loop over the years have been briefed by him, and Dr. Kirkpatrick could acknowledge and develop this already established valuable resource and retain Dr. Greer as a consultant with the at least 400 witness statements he already has on record. Likewise, whatever it is that Mr. Grusch believes he cannot share without recourse to the skiff scenario is not likely going to be something the people will be able to know, and Dr. Greer has elicited like testimony some years ago which is in the public domain. The same observation can be made in respect of Stephen Bassett of the Paradigm Research Group, who formalised the excellent Citizens Hearing on Disclosure event from April 29th to May 3rd, 2013, also held at the Press Club in Washington, D.C., presented an incredible array of insights from highly credentialed professionals. 30 hours of testimony was given by 42 researchers, military agency and political witnesses from 10 countries over 5 days before 6 members of the US Congress regarding all manner of things extraterrestrial. Those former members of the US Congress were, of course, retired. However, there is a wealth of information already amassed, and governmental committees would save themselves a lot of time and money by drawing on the expertise, skill, and research of those who have already paved the way. It seems we are intent on reinventing the wheel, or is it just obfuscation? It was Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso's book The Day After Roswell, published in 1997, that let some tricky kitties out of the secrecy bag. In 2005, when retired Minister of National Defence for Canada, the Honourable Paul Hellyer, read it, his sceptical nephew asked a general he knew about the veracity of its contents. His response was, "Every word is true and more." That mind-bending statement set the Honourable Paul Hellyer on a quest for the rest of his life relating to ETs and UFOs. He gave voice and penmanship time and again to the subject, stating unequivocally regarding UFOs and UAPs, they are as real as the airplanes flying overhead. The United States military are preparing weapons which could be used against the aliens, and they could get us into an intergalactic war without us ever having any warning. The Honourable Paul Hellyer spoke about the media being compromised and the Roswell event cover-up becoming a cornerstone lie, creating a culture of constant lying. The press has been so corrupted, we don't have a free press. Further, it is a known fact that Director of the CIA, Allen Dulles, set up in the 1950s Operation Mockingbird, a covert program that essentially sought to influence the media, and not just in the United States. When it came to light initially, the CIA had 400 journalists on its payroll. Perception management on steroids. Has much changed, we ask? Lieutenant Colonel Philip J. Corso was an intelligence military man trained by the British MI-19. And in 1947, at Fort Riley, Kansas, as duty officer for the night, having heard about a sensitive cargo delivered by several trucks, he opened up one of 5 crates and saw a strange, child-sized body suspended in liquid. The head was different, the limbs were spindly, and the colour was grey, with 4 fingers. There was no point of reference for what he observed, so he put it to the back of his mind until some corroborating information came into play. Moving forward some 10 to 14 years, he's made head of a new department, the Foreign Technology Division, where information, artifacts and technology of things extraterrestrial came under his purview, actioned by his boss, General Arthur Trudeau, who sent for his review and research a filing cabinet filled with related material. Lieutenant Colonel Corso states he received crash and autopsy reports from the military-funded laboratory at the Walter Reed Army Hospital. All reports were seen by Lieutenant Colonel Corso, along with evidence of alien technology from the crash sites he visited, which included pieces of metal. Further, Lieutenant Colonel Corso reports he disseminated some of the Roswell technology, like integrated circuits, laser tracking and fibre optics to various military contracted companies for development with a view to eventually seeding them in the public domain. He believes that had humanity not had this leg up of alien technology, we would likely be lagging behind by 250 years. Food for thought, if true. Another much reported paradigm-shifting event is that of June 24, 1947, just 10 days before the Roswell event. Airborne at 3 p.m, pilot Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 crescent-shaped UFOs around 100 foot in size fly over Mount Rainier in an echelon formation at speeds of approximately 1,700 miles per hour on a bright, clear day. There were other witnesses to this event, which was reported in the local press, becoming an historic, iconic meme that caught the world's attention. Not unlike the UFOs that became something of a feature during World War II, the Foo Fighters. Those anomalous objects that appeared as balls of light, seen alongside craft and reported over all the theatres of war. So the concept of such objects in our skies was definitely gaining traction. In 1948, General Nathan Twining, in the interests of national security, launched what became known as Project Blue Book, with its earlier incarnations as Project Saucer, Project Sign, then Project Grudge, the first official military intelligence program. Its remit to gather data on sightings. There was no doubt there'd been an uptick in sightings of UFOs following the testing of the first atom bomb, July 16, 1945, known as the Manhattan Project. Meanwhile, in 1950 in Canada, Project Magnet was initiated as a UFO research data and analysis program under the direction of the brilliant radio engineer Wilbert B. Smith, but which was shut down officially in October 1954 due to excessive and detrimental media intrusion, though he still continued research privately. Wilbert Smith had been exchanging pieces of anomalous metal for research from such craft with the Americans and Lieutenant Colonel Corso. Wilbert Smith even spoke of a personal contact he had with a being called Offa, one of the boys topside as he referred to them, i.e. his off-planet contacts. In a declassified memo of November 21, 1950, Smith states he had made discreet inquiries at the Canadian Embassy in Washington and obtained the following response regarding UFOs. A. The matter is the most highly classified subject in the United States government, rating higher even than the H-bomb. B. Flying saucers exist. And thanks to Grant Cameron's exhaustive research in bringing such material into the public domain. So when Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, a physicist and director of AARO, that is AARO, which stands for All Domain Aomally Resolution Office, instigated July 2022, whose career had spanned a variety of roles within the higher echelons of the science and intelligence community, including for the CIA and DIA, says in his testimony on April 19, 2023, to the Senate Armed Services Subcommittee on Emerging Threats and Capabilities, I also state clearly, for the record, that in our research, AARO has found no credible evidence thus far of extraterrestrial activity, off-world technology, or objects that defy the known law of physics. I wonder where he's been then. One has to wonder the motive for making such a statement when the last 100 years is filled with a very different opposing narrative. Despite the many fine witnesses who have already come forward in good faith to give testimony to AARO, such as Robert Salas, for example, regarding the 1967 Malmstrom Air Force Base UFO incident, where he was part of a two-man team, 60 foot below ground, who had control of 10 Minuteman ICBMs. Mid-evening, Robert Salas reports he had a call from a frightened soldier above ground who reported a glowing red oval object hovering outside the gate. Shortly thereafter, inexplicably, all of the missiles shut down within seconds of each other. None were interlinked, all separately shut down through triple shielding. Robert remarked that in 1967 there were 37,000 nuclear weapons in the world, and each one of the ICBMs were equivalent to 800 kilotons of TNT. And for perspective, the ones used on Nagasaki and Hiroshima were just 20 kilotons. It is noteworthy to observe that the threat perspective seems to be the only point of interest. In 1963, Command Sergeant Major Robert O'Dean was assigned to SHAPE, Supreme Headquarters Allied Powers, in Paris, specifically SHOC, SHOC, Supreme Headquarters Operations Center, the War Room. His top-secret clearance was upgraded to Cosmic Top Secret, a NATO classification. There he learned of a UFO study initiated by an event where many circular metallic objects under intelligent control and in formation came from the east, the direction of the Soviet Union, flying across the West and Europe, and they were observed for 20 minutes before disappearing from NATO radar over the Norwegian Sea on February 2nd, 1961. This could have become seriously problematical, not least because the Russians assumed these craft belonged to the West, and the West thought they belonged to the Soviets, Russia. Appreciating the seriousness of this event that could have been instrumental in triggering a war, a detailed review of the incident was set in motion. This top-secret study, called The Assessment of a Possible Military Threat to NATO Forces in Europe, was 3 years in the making and completed in 1964, which Mr. O'Dean read. The conclusion, he says, was simple, that there is no threat, and that apparently the human race and planet has been under observation and survey by several advanced extraterrestrial intelligences from the beginning of human history. The continued appearance of such advanced craft indicated that, had there been a malevolent intent toward the human race, it would have been over a long time ago. So, where is this study now? I understand there were only 15 copies ever made, and this classified report was kept from public knowledge. In light of the conclusion made, this important document should be made available for all to see after nearly 6 decades. Meanwhile, during July 1952, on more than one occasion, several unidentified objects were picked up on radar which overflew the White House and Capitol building. As the jets sent to intercept reached the location, nothing was found. The strange radar blip would disappear. This left authorities perplexed and Project Blue Book overwhelmed with sighting reports. Churchill, Lord Dowding and UFOs. It seems that from 1950, the intelligence operations in England had instigated a 5-man team secretly investigating RAF sighting reports of UFOs, aptly named the Flying Saucer Working Party, due to the ongoing reports. In 1952, Operation Mainbrace, a major NATO exercise in Europe, ran from September the 14th to the 25th. However, on the 13th September, a triangular craft was observed by a Danish captain and crew of a Danish destroyer, and on the 20th, whilst on board the USS Franklin D. Roosevelt aircraft carrier, Wallace Litwin, a reporter, photographed and observed, along with the crew, a silver sphere following the fleet. On September 19, 1952, a UFO was reported over RAF Topcliffe Station, North Yorkshire, UK, appearing to follow a meteor plane back from exercises over the North Sea, which was observed by several airmen. It seems Churchill and Eisenhower were concerned about these unknowns, and the Foo Fighters likely causing Churchill to write the following famous memo. "What does all this stuff about flying saucers amount to? What can it mean? What is the truth? Let me have a report at your convenience." Written 28th of July 1952. It is mooted that Churchill ordered the cover-up of the UFO issue when an RAF bomber crew reported a sighting on returning from Germany, when Churchill is reported to have said this event should be immediately classified for 50 years, since it would create mass panic among the general population and destroy one's belief in the church. However, there appears to be no record of this order, and whether that is related to files being destroyed over 5 years prior to 1967 is open to conjecture. Though during his second term as Prime Minister, which is 1951 to 1955, Churchill sent Lord Hugh Dowding, the architect of the Battle of Britain, to the States in 1953 as part of a two-man team to discuss the UFO question. Lord Dowding was an aficionado of the UFO field, and in 1957 gave a talk at his Saucer Club in Tunbridge Wells, Kent, UK. From this historical backdrop, the current US Congress meeting and testimonies seem somewhat pallid. And, speaking of secrets, David Adair, a savant from childhood with a photographic memory, studied quantum physics at 7 years old and built his first rocket at 12. At 17, David developed a rocket that did not employ the usual combustion system. With federal funding, his biggest rocket was tested out at the White Sands Missile Range on 20th June 1971. This test had come to the attention of men in black suits with mirrored sunglasses, along with NASA officials who instructed David to direct his missile 656 miles northwest of their location to precise coordinates. The rocket sped from 0 to 8,654 miles per hour in 4.1 seconds. Impossible to see. David was flown to the landing point, which turned out to be what he thought was just a dry lake bed, in fact was Groom Lake, Area 51. Before inspecting his rocket, David was taken in a golf cart type vehicle into a hangar and down 20 stories into an underground facility, accompanied by armed guards and the infamous paperclip Nazi Arthur Rudolph, rocket scientist, to look at a school bus-sized disabled engine, 60 feet long, 15 feet tall, and 22 feet wide, that David soon recognized as a much larger and better version of his own system, an electromagnetic fusion containment drive, which he quickly realized was symbiotic, i.e., the alloys of the engine responded to his energy field and functioned as one with the pilot's. It wasn't long before David realized this mechanism was not from this neck of the woods. It was obviously alien technology, and he'd been brought to see if he could work out how the object operated, and if this was the engine. He knew the craft had to be in the region of at least 300 feet. He asked where it came from, and where were the occupants. This line of questioning was not well received, and he was quickly removed from the area. He knew he had to see his rocket. Of course, he realized his work had incredible applications in the theatre of war, and when overhearing comments and the phrase "first strike," David understood what these people had in mind for his technology. Having quickly calculated that 1 billion people would die if his technology was used to take out Russia and then China, when they finally took him to check his rocket, discreetly, David sabotaged it, destroying it completely. That was the last of his work in that arena. The following year, leaving school, he found himself conscripted by the government. They hadn't forgiven him, and he spent the next 10 years in the Navy designing jet engines by way of compromise. David's experience is indicative of the layers of secrecy and obfuscation that is still prevalent to this day, so excuse me if I cannot take seriously the AARO director's testimonial. I also think it is time to put Mr. Grusch's testimony to the test in a public setting where he references, amongst other things, non-human biologics. Whilst these are not his but others' testimonies, it is time for the veracity of these statements to be aired in the light of day, and without penalty for Mr. Grusch or his informants. It is time to unlock the SCIFs, the sensitive compartmented information facilities in respect of things ET and especially alternative energy. ETs amongst us are evidenced by the writings of Charles Hall, a Vietnam veteran who was stationed at Indian Springs S4, Nevada, with the highest secret clearance as a weather observer, where he was in charge of 4 weather stations and spent 2 years from 1965 to 1967 at his lone job. No one had lasted more than 6 months in the role thus far, and no one had told him what to expect. He wasn't long in the job when he came into contact with something he'd definitely not been briefed on. The location, it turns out, also contained an alien base in Area 53, comprising their underground living quarters, and 54, their hangar, some 45 miles up the mountain, both inside Area 51. The base was for a group of off-worlders he calls the Tall Whites, that he's written about in his 4 books, Millennial Hospitality. These people live about 10 times longer than humans do, in the range of 600 or 700 years. They are slighter, though usually taller than we are, with paper white skin, and in some situations could pass for human, though in their later years they start growing again and can reach 8 foot. But as they age and grow, their organs do not, and they become more fragile and eventually die. These extraordinary people have been coming to and from Earth for a very long time. There is an agreement between the military and them which is of mutual benefit, and Charles would see the human generals on occasion with the tall white generals, and it is said that they had taken some of the higher-ranking military up on their craft to the moon. We don't hear about this from Congress or the military. This incredible story, told by Mr. Hall, is long, and you can read his recounting of his experiences for yourselves. Suffice to say that the governments, military, black ops, contractors, and intelligence worldwide are all well aware of extraterrestrials. There is so much evidence of interaction with off-worlders who are highly advanced not only technologically but spiritually, like the incredible case of Swiss farmer Billy Meyer, whose lifelong contact case, photographs and film of craft have been subjected to detailed analysis, along with metals from the craft and the teachings of these Pleiaren, and this has been going on for decades. There is an incredibly exciting world waiting for humanity to become aware of and to accept without fear and aggression as a default response. I could go on. It is unlikely that the US Senate hearings or AARO et al. Will lead us closer to the truth of the ongoing matter of contact. And then, the Holy Grail, perhaps at the heart of the matter. If humanity can wrest the keys to the kingdom of alternative technology and energy rooted deep within the Black Projects et al., I think we'll have an opportunity to experience a greater world and develop relationships with our galactic heritage. Imagine what a paradigm shift that would provoke.